Awesome. Well, good afternoon. I want to thank you all so much for coming. My name is Candice Tavares. I am a wood artist, and this is my work on the walls here. I started working with wood in 2021. And initially I was working with one species of wood and just staining the wood, and then I have a friend who happens to be here now who encouraged me to really start using different species of wood to tell the story of really our natural beauty, and pass forward this message of just loving yourself and appreciating yourself as you are, and not needing to augment how your body shows up in the world for you to be valuable. And so this exhibition is called Behind the Veil, and we can kind of talk a little bit. So I think one of the things that was important to me for this show was to make sure that the art that was on the walls was reflective of many different body types. I think oftentimes we see art and it looks one way, usually not brown. And if it is not reflective of the way that most women's bodies look. I think oftentimes the art that we see is kind of reflective of a Eurocentric standard of beauty that is just not realistic for us. And I have a friend who said to me one time that she never sees her body type reflected in the art that she sees on walls in museums or traditional art spaces, and she wanted to change that, and I was like, well, I would like to change that too. So I really tried to make sure that there were pieces that spanned the gamut of body size, body shape, body type, and also like the stages that a woman's body goes through over the course of a lifetime. And one of the reasons that I wanted my art to do that is because I feel like when you don't see yourself reflected in a way that is considered beautiful, it's hard to think of yourself as beautiful. And I think when it's hard to think of yourself as beautiful, it's hard to think of yourself kind of positively at all. And I was wondering, from your perspective as a psychiatrist, like how often do you encounter Black women who have like body dysmorphia and just like low self-image, and how that impacts their mental health?
Okay, wow, we are just jumping right into it. So from where I sit, I see Black women and their bodies as the standard of beauty. And I see that reflected in this country. I see that as Black women were the desired women that were also being oppressed. And then that very clear evidence of desirability was leading to further oppression and the furthering of a narrative that is simply not true, that Eurocentric beauty is the standard. And I see it come out, obviously in young women or women, Black women of any age. But when you think about why is there a campaign to villainize the way a Black woman's body shows up in human form, when the variations, the different colors, the different hair, it's just so incredibly beautiful and different that I guess in order to ensure that a group group of women feel badly about themselves. You have to work really, really hard to convince them otherwise. So that's what I see. I see the archetype of European beauty being a tool of racial oppression, and recognizing that you can turn around and say, so it's all a lie, and now I have to like deconstruct everything. You know, there's a reason why like Jet Beauty of the Week is like so emblazoned in a whole generation's mind. It was like, this is the first time we are seeing Black women every week, a new like sexy mama, you know, and these were wives of, you know, these were everyday Black women. You know, my mother's friends were Jet Beauties of the Week, okay? If you go back and look, it'll, you know, these are aunties, everybody. And if I wish we could have just a compendium of every Jet Beauty of the Week, because that would be the most beautiful display to say, look at that, and why are we fighting against this beauty? You know, so if when you look and say, somebody has worked really hard to tell me I'm not cute, and why are they doing that? That helps you to understand how much power a Black woman's body has.
That's a really good point. This idea of how like extremely hard they work to try to make us feel like
overtime.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a full-time job. You know, I mean, you have to, in order to justify, if you have to diminish another beauty and, you know, make that just very taboo in order to accelerate, you know, how you're feeling about your own beauty, then that's just telling the tale, you know. So, of course, I think any woman is showing up in a space that's created by men anyway. And when there's any othering or difference in your body type or your skin type or your hair type, then you can feel how, you know, how society is forcing on you to feel. But the best way to try to deconstruct that is to really think about why somebody's working so hard to tell you that.
So I have a question.
Yes.
And please feel free to ask questions as we go along, right? So we're talking about beauty in the physical sense, right? And how does that translate to how you see your subjects and how you want to portray your subjects in your work?
So I think that beauty is more than skin deep. I hope that that is apparent in the way that I kind of like show up in the world and interact with people. But I think that you can have the most beautiful spirit, but if nobody tells you that also the way that you show up in the world, like not just how you act, but how you physically present in a space, is also like valued and valuable and worthy of like adoration, it's hard to feel good about yourself. And I think if the only thing that you ever hear is that, well, you're such a good person. Oh, but you're so nice. You have such a good personality. Like it starts to call into question, like, is my only value kind of what I can do or how I can like make somebody else feel good? And so because of that, I want to celebrate many body types. And show people that like not just are you beautiful on the inside, but you're beautiful on the outside. Like whether you are small in frame, whether you are a little bit more big boned, whether you have rolls, whether you have stretch marks, if you have no curves at all and somebody has told you that you look like a 12-year-old boy even though you are 45 years old and very much a woman, like that is all still beautiful. And for me, I think if I can reflect that in a way that feels like it is showing beauty on, not the canvas, but the piece of wood that's on the wall in the frame, I think sometimes that can just like, as you see a bit of yourself in the work, it can remind you that just like the work on the wall is beautiful, you're also beautiful. You know, people always say like representation matters, And I think it does. I think there's an element of like recognizing your own potential for like beauty and like just to be treated well, and seeing somebody else who is considered beautiful or who looks like you being treated well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we move forward as far as related to what has been said or, you know, about the work or anything? Does anybody have any questions or a comment that they would like to add?
Just quickly, are these pieces from actual individuals and subjects, or are these from your mind and you did like a conglomerate?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination. Some like this piece is it's a self-portrait. There's a piece over there that was like inspired by a picture of Lizzo. The pregnancy piece isn't like I didn't have a person for that. I just kind of like know what a pregnant body looks like. And sometimes I will kind of like look at a picture to get like an idea or inspiration, but the final work is always like 15 iterations from what that original picture looks like. So very rarely is it like a specific person that I'm trying to show, but more like an idea, I would say.
Thanks.
So just in you starting with wood, when did that start for you?
And why?
Just like how old were you, or just want to know more about your connection to wood?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's so unique.
It is.
So it's kind of funny. My dad was like a woodworker, like a hobbyist woodworker. So growing up, I remember like he taught me how to use a saw, and he before he got my car when I was like very young. But before that, I remember him like working on a wooden dollhouse for me. And even after he was like hurt, he still would build stuff, and I would help him. I think I got to learn how to use power tools more because over time I was just like kind of helping him more. And the first time I cut one of my illustrations into wood, it was really just kind of like, well, I'm here and I've learned how to use this machine, so why not see what it does? And when I saw the black female figure translated into wood, it just felt right. It felt like, oh, this makes sense. This is a perfect medium to kind of like reflect on the natural beauty that we possess. And I just kind of stuck with it. Like I couldn't think of another medium that felt more at home for kind of the work that I was doing and also the message that I was trying to convey with the work that I was doing.
So were you always an artist first, like in school for art?
Oh no, I'm a pharmacist. I'm a pharmacist. I have a degree in chemical engineering and a degree in pharmacy, and I mostly I work with people who are end of life now. So part of the reason that I do work that is like that has to feel meaningful is because the other work that I do is pretty meaningful and also heavy as I don't know what, so I need like an outlet for that.
And Candice, one of the questions that I always get about you is where do you source your wood? So I think that'd be a great information to tell people.
Yeah. So I source my wood from a lot of different places. There are some exotic lumber yards in this area. And then also there is a maker space that I work out of in Baltimore, and there are a lot of other like furniture makers there. So sometimes they'll have cutoffs because they're making really big pieces, and I'm making relatively small pieces. So their cutoffs are like gold to me. And then also when I go on vacation, I try to find lumber yards. I like smuggled all this wood back from Hawaii. When we went on family vacation, it was like in my suitcase, my parents' suitcase. I tried to get my sister, she was like not going for it. But so it's like lots of different places.
Do you accept commission? Do you like
I do.
commission work?
I do.
How long does one of these pieces take you?
So it really kind of depends. sometimes I start a piece and like 2 weeks later it's done because I'm just like really in the zone. And other times I can be working on a piece for like 6 months. I think I worked on this piece for maybe, it was like 6 or 8 months. It took forever to finish. And I think part of the reason it took forever to finish was because I was trying to work through what I was feeling when I started it. And over time, the way that I felt was different, and then I had to figure out how to integrate that into the work and still be authentic with it. So it kind of depends. Yeah. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about was this idea of like ways that we can work to improve our self-image, and what some tools are that can like help us get there.
Well, it really comes with a lot of reframing, and you said representation matters, so surrounding yourself with positive images and affirming images is very important. So spaces like this, welcoming spaces, like welcoming wellness spaces. Black women don't talk enough about what it feels like to walk into a yoga studio as a Black woman. I never felt that any average yoga studio or Pilates studio was built for me. Like I never walked into a yoga class like, oh, this is definitely where I'm supposed to be. I feel very othered and very unwelcome. And so being intentional about choosing spaces that are welcoming. So a wellness or yoga studio that you know will be, images that are, I mean, there's no upside to flipping through, 1,000 pages of, photographs of Kate Moss for me. Like that's not going to like make me feel much better about myself. And the reframing comes from thinking about, thinking about it differently. Like scars on a body or stretch marks are an indication of a life lived, or children born, or weight that's been gained or lost, and it's your life, and it's like you've got your one body, parts you might be able to like add or subtract, but you have your body there, and it is yours, and if you're unloving towards it, it's not going to be happier, and you're not going to be happier. So that reframing and that energy is really, really challenging sometimes, but it is, you have to be very intentional, and you have to surround yourself with positive reflections of your body and yourself. And then understanding when look, I couldn't walk into a corporate job with my new hairdo, right? So, I'm talking about my braids. Last night, I went out and someone made the comment, oh, it's because you don't have a corporate 9-to-5 job. Can you get that hairdo? And I'm like, well, maybe. But why is that? Why can't I walk into a corporate space with whatever hairstyle I want to as a Black woman? Like, who said that that was wrong? Who said that that means I'm not going to make a good, merger report? Like, who came up with that idea? But it is a fact. So understanding, surrounding yourself with positive things, and then reframing constantly is one way to feel better.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you mentioned like somebody saying that your hair like wouldn't be acceptable in a corporate setting. I work in a hospital and I wear my hair like this all the time. I just, or it's in a bun. It looks like a pineapple every day. And it took a long time for me to feel comfortable with like interviewing with my hair natural, because I worried that like, oh, they may feel like I'm too sister girl. They may not want to hire me. And at a certain point, I kind of felt like, well, if you don't want to hire me because my hair looks like this, I'm pretty sure I don't want to work with you because it's not going to be a welcoming environment, and I'm not actually going to thrive there.
Right.
And it's so interesting because, like, on the one hand, there's this like pervasive like idea of having to show up like with respectability politics, right? And like be a certain way and present yourself in a way that is like easily palatable and socially acceptable, but also like how much are we supposed to be expected to like contort ourselves into some other standard to be digestible? Like, why do we have to be digestible?
Right. And so I think that that is one of the like pillars of challenges of Black womanhood and a Black body, right? That shrinking and contorting and changing because it's based on like othering and oppression, right? Why isn't it that a curly afro isn't the standard for corporate America? Yeah.
Excellent
Why?
question.
Yeah. So why do I have to think about how I'm going to wear my hair if I'm getting a headshot? Like, why do I have to think about that? You know, a whole season out of the year, I'm gonna have braids because I can't have straight hair, right? So instead of maybe giving people like whiplash when they see me show up without my straight hair, maybe I should just, you know, not think about that for a headshot. So we have to shrink, we have to change, we have to in our heads, but we don't. When we do, we are challenging the system. We are, you know, inviting ourselves into spaces where we may not be welcome, we may not be able to grow, we may, you know, we may have a lot of questions from coworkers, like, oh, I didn't recognize you because you changed your hair, or can I touch your hair, or like, I mean, you know, I mean, like, there's so many things that come with being a Black woman and trying to fit into, you know, spaces that are not built for Black women's bodies and hair. There's just a lot that comes with it.
I think one of the things that I have personally recognized is like just the amount of mental gymnastics that comes with trying to fit into spaces that are not really designed for you. And I know it takes a toll. I'm wondering if you can talk about kind of like the toll that takes on like a Black woman's mental health.
Ooh, yeah, I mean, look, oftentimes women come to me and they're working and they want to take short-term disability because they are so incredibly stressed at their job. And when you start to peel it all back, it's mostly because of where they're not fitting in and how they're not fitting in, and the lack of either mentoring opportunities or safe spaces to have conversations with coworkers that are not then weaponized. Yeah, Black women, no matter the discipline, are generally underrepresented in any sort of profession and over-disciplined. If you look at any of the workplace discipline, as compared to the percentage of the Black women that are maybe in that field or that company, there is a mismatch. Why is it so easy to discipline a Black woman at work? Why is it so easy to make things difficult for her? I mean, I see it in my practice. There's an enormous amount of stress. There's an enormous amount of just frustration. And I think that the whole concept of, you know, strong Black woman is rooted in oppression, one. I mean, it dehumanizes a Black woman's body. Like, what do you mean? We feel pain the same way. We have the same tissue structure, and we should not be encouraged to take on pain and oppression and abuse because we're built for it. No, we're not. No, actually, I am much better suited for a very soft life. That is where I thrive. I thrive in not really having to suffer very much, actually. Like, the opposite is very untrue. I'm not having a good day if I'm suffering. So, and I point to these images in the media that we have got to stop. If anybody sends me something with a black woman and a cape on it,
I don't want it.
burn it. It is not for me. I'm not wearing a cape anywhere. Not on Halloween. No, like maybe with like a gown, okay? But
It has to be very fashionable.
yeah. But it's also I am not a superhero. I don't want to be. No, thank you. So when we are allowing our bodies to take on stress, we feel it. Like, it becomes painful. We become sick. We have autoimmune illnesses. We have headaches. Our weight fluctuates. Like, it's not easy. So we have to question why that is and where it's coming from and why anyone is trying to assign a badge of honor for us to take on more pain and be called strong. Like, that is so ridiculous. Like we just have to start saying no thank you to that. So when I see women who come in like that, we really have to get to like the root cause. There are so many times that mid-40s women are leaving these workspaces because they have the credentials and they should be ascending, but they're not. And they're leaving. You get just close enough, but you don't fit. And why is that? Because do you know how dope I had to be to get here anyway? So why am I being questioned? Why am I not the chief resident? Because I got higher scores than everybody here, but I'm the only black boy. Oh, okay. So these questions are really like rooted in somebody. One thing you can't do is you can't show up not a black woman at work, right? You are showing up as that. So all of the assumptions and the ease of feeling like you can oppress are there as well. And it just happens over and over. I mean, we all know this happens at work, to our friends, to ourselves. Like, this is not a secret.
That's so true.
And anyone with a job can,
Yeah. It is, and so I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad that we are talking about how easy it is to reprimand or pick apart or discipline, try to put in place a black woman in work environments, and honestly I think in other environments too. And that is one of the reasons why this particular exhibition is called Behind the Veil, because I think so often we have to have a bit of a shield, right? Some type of covering of part of ourselves that we just aren't comfortable enough to let people scrutinize, and let them see the portion that they can palate. And I wanted to create a space with this exhibition that really encouraged, if nowhere else, for the 15 to 20 minutes that you're in this space, to feel like you can let that stuff down and just be fully yourself and fully valued for who you are. Because I don't think that there are a lot of spaces that we can do that. You can't do it at work unless you're in a really special work environment. I find that a lot of times black women cannot do it at home either. There is a lot of expectation to support other people, and not always the expectation that the support will be reflected back. And so I don't know where there are spaces for black women to just feel safe being themselves, unless being surrounded by other Black women. But
Now I'm gonna say, oh, I don't know of very many either. Like, I mean, that in itself is really, really sad, right? And because it is very true. I mean, there aren't very many spaces that are designed for the comfort and, you know, well-being and welcoming of Black women and their bodies. Like, that's just not the standard. That's very much going to be the exception. And yet, these same Black women are expected to literally use their backs as like bridges for people to just, you know, like lean on and have support from and build and nurture without being like poured into. And we have to ask, like, why? Like, what is wrong with us? Like, why are you treating us like that? Like, why do you both want us to support you and then also not demand anything in return? Like,
it's a question that I wish I knew the answer to, because then I could like write a book on how to like not think that way.
right.
Where are you going next with this body work?
That's a good question. I want to expand. I would like to have more body types. I had this vision of having a room full of just bodies. And like, almost like similar to what we did here, but like just coming out from being covered. And bodies of like every shape and size and color. And I still want to, like, this is a great start to it, but I still want to see it. Like, I want to see it in a museum full of just like Black women's bodies being considered beautiful at every stage of life, every size, old, grown, whatever. I would like for Black women to be able to walk into the space and be like, oh wow, that is me. Thank you for celebrating me. So I kind of think that that's where I'd like to go with it, but I don't know like when that's going to happen.
I would like to just add something. This has been a substantive conversation. When you talk about the veil, and one of the things that kind of attracted me to this idea of a veil is Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear masks, and that's part of the Black experience in which we all have a veil that we put on, whether we realize it or not, when we go into the world, to make our Blackness more palatable to the rest of the people. And that's one of the things that I kind of thought about, you know, as we began to talk about this exhibition. Obviously not from a Black woman's standpoint, because I'm not a Black woman, but I am empathetic always as a Black man to our overall Black experience. And then also W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, when he was talked about the veil of ignorance and removing the veil and being able to see things, you know, and once you know, you can't unknow, you know. So that's why I think that the veils, being authentically unapologetic selves is so important. And I'm glad that Candice has beautifully executed that in this exhibition. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you went with it. Because it is not necessarily a concept that centers, it doesn't center men. This is 100% a concept that centers Black women. Like, this is a space designed to celebrate Black women's bodies. And there aren't a ton of people who are like, great, let's do it. Let's make this whole space about you guys. So I appreciate the fact that you like went with it. I wanted fabric everywhere, and you went with that too. I think it is important not just for us to be able to celebrate us, but for us to also have opportunities to see Black men celebrate us and center us. And so I appreciate that you were willing to do that. That was.
Thank you. Yes.
We talked a little bit, you mentioned scarring. And the sculptures that are along the wall to the right, the smaller ones, they were really born out of my journey to accept a scar that I had. And as I looked at like this piece of wood that was thrown away and considered not useful because it had a crack in it and a knot, the crack in the knot very much resemble the shape and placement of like my myomectomy scar and my belly button. And as I looked at that and I like saw my body in a piece of wood, I started to see like other bodies as well. And when I first posted that work, there was someone who responded and said that they had been struggling for a really long time to come to terms with a similar scar that they had, and how they felt like, I guess, damaged in a way because of like that scar and the placement of it. And I guess I wonder if you can speak to like if you've had patients come in with concerns like that and kind of.
Well, of course, you know, I'm not a therapist. I am a psychiatrist, but I do talk to everyone that I see. You know, I feel like I generally get to know everybody fairly well, and I don't think that there's a woman that doesn't have a part of their body that they, you know, focus on more, and it could be a scar, it could be what they perceive to be a flaw, and it's very, if it's a sudden thing that happens to you, you know, having a different body is a shift, is a change. It's one, acknowledging I have to get used to this. I have to get used to the reminder of the thing that happened. I have to get used to whatever the thing that happened and what that means to my life. And I have to get used to it being there in my body, and then in turn me finding a way to like love it. Because again, we get this one chance at being nice to the bodies we have and figuring out how to think about these things differently. This is a reminder that I have a body that, you know, needs to be cared for, needs something from me, needs me to pay attention to it, and can also do these, you know, marvelous things. It is really hard to get there because it's your body, and like, you know, obviously if you're showing it to anyone or the world or whatever it is, you don't want the feedback to be like, oh, ew, like what is that? Like nobody, you know, wakes up in the morning and is like, I cannot wait for somebody to say like, oh, that's not great on your body right there, right? So you have to overly prepare yourself and your body to be in love with each other. And getting there is really difficult, but I don't know that there's anyone that doesn't have something that they fixate on or focus on. I mean, there wouldn't be plastic surgeons, right? You know, there wouldn't be a cosmetic beauty industry, like, and we're all in search. And scars can often be these phenomenal ways of telling your like life events and your life stories. And that storytelling is like intimacy, and it turns into something different. So I guess the real deal is like figuring out how to turn these things around. You know, by all means, if there's something on your body you don't like and you'd like to fix it or do whatever, or fix your thinking about it by keeping it and loving it, then it is only, the only person who writes the rules is you, because you have to be happy with
One of the things that you mentioned just now is that you're a psychiatrist and not a psychologist. And I don't think that, like, in Black communities we talk a ton about either distinction or discipline or job. I'm wondering if you can talk about what the difference is and maybe some of the stigma around one or both.
Sure. So as a psychiatrist, I went to medical school, and then I did not go to medical school to become a psychiatrist. I followed my dad around on weekends, rounding in hospitals all through New York and New Jersey, and I was very comfortable. This is before, I guess, HIPAA. It became 196. So before HIPAA, you could find me at any nursing station from Harlem to Newark on the weekends, and I thought I was part of the team. Like my dad comes back and he's talking to some interns and residents, and I might feel like, well, I mean, is that really the plan we're going with here? So I grew up in medicine, had no plan to become a psychiatrist whatsoever. I myself didn't really think that they were real, doctors. I was like, I probably couldn't have told you the difference, really. But I very quickly realized I was a little more queasy than I initially thought when I got to med school. So I did not make it through my surgery rotation with flying colors. Let's just say that. So I started trying to settle on, okay, what can I do here? And I thought I could do peds. It was a little bit too much for me. So I ended up in internal medicine, and on my second day of my internship, I went to the training director and I was like, so this is over. I have to unfortunately resign. I will not be completing this internship. This is really not for me. I don't like it. It's really terrible. I can't do this for the rest of my life. And so he said, okay, listen, let's do this. Let's have you rotate for real with different things that you could do with the year of internal medicine. And so I left psychiatry for the last, because I was like, there's literally no way I'm doing that. And I mean, it was maybe hour 2 where I was like, okay, so this is totally what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. So I'm a physician. I dispense medications for anxiety, depression, ADHD. I'm in private practice. I have been in private practice now since I left my fellowship. So I did a residency in adult psychiatry, and then I did a fellowship in child. And the day after I completed my fellowship, I opened my private practice in Chevy Chase, and I've had a private practice, for over 15 years. And through that time, I've always maintained that, but I've chaired child psych departments. I've done a lot of inpatient work, and I've been the medical director of facilities. And then COVID hit, and I realized okay, I just need to be in private practice because I cannot do all of those things. But the contrast to that is a psychologist, and they are therapists. They do, also testing and various, things that are needed for court reports, etc. Where people often, and I mean, it happens at least once a month where I get someone who's a new patient who doesn't realize that I'm literally no, we're trying, okay, so let's find a medication. So I think that in Black communities, mental health is a little more taboo. It's not something that people are running towards, saying oh, this is amazing, I need to see a psychiatrist, so that I'm going to tell everyone and share that. It's just not what happens. But on the converse, I mean, I try to explain this to everyone, people who see psychiatrists, especially ones like me, they're living and breathing and walking amongst us, okay? So on average, I'm seeing somebody who might have situational depression or just general anxiety. And so there's never a time where you want to hesitate if you feel things aren't going well, and do you want an expert opinion on whether or not a medication might be helpful. But generally speaking, in Black and brown communities, we do let things go a little too long oftentimes, especially when the exposure is not there. So I do enjoy being able to, you know, say I am a psychiatrist in plenty of open spaces and have people see that I'm not like, you know, Mama Odie and like Princess and the Frog. Like I feel, you know, a little bit like that sometimes, that in my, you know, culture, in my community, that psychiatrists can be treated like we're like witch doctors. I mean, like patients. I mean, look, but it's you know, it's just not where we are, and we have to come around to understanding that just like you wouldn't tell someone with diabetes to just, you know, kind of like soldier through that.
Pray it away.
Pray it away, you know. I mean, maybe if there's anxiety or depression, we might want to see a psychiatrist. So basically, long and short is I write prescriptions for medication.
I thank you for that. One of the reasons that I really wanted you to come was because I also want to like use whatever platform I have to try to promote the idea that like there are many ways that we can take care of ourselves. And I think sometimes when the thing that you've been feeling that causes dis-ease in your body and your mind can be attached to a diagnosis, that there is something that can help to manage it, it can make it a lot easier to like do life. Because you're not thinking like, well, it's just me. There's just something wrong with me. Like, it's a diagnosis, and it's okay to have a diagnosis because you can manage that and live a good life.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
To what extent does your mental and emotional health at any given time show up in or impact your work?
Oh, a ton. So like this piece here, if you look kind of closely, there is a broken heart on her cheek. And at the time that I started this piece, I had like gone through something. And I was feeling very much brokenhearted and kind of like I needed to take agency of my own body again. So I was like very intentional about centering that heart, that broken heart on her face, my face. But over time, I didn't feel like that anymore. I did the work that needs to be done to kind of heal and deal with the trauma that I had gone through. So I wasn't brokenhearted. And I didn't want my self-portrait to be like stuck in heartbreak. But at the same time, I didn't want to like pretend that it didn't happen. I wanted to be authentic to the journey that I was on, and also wanted to acknowledge the fact that like it ebbs and flows, right? So there will be times where I'm still like, oh man, like that thing that I went through was awful, or like something new will happen and I will feel once again pretty crappy. But then there'll also be times where I feel full and whole and happy. And so the way that I accomplished that was I created another face. I'm gonna stand up and kind of show. So the piece, it is like the face is interchangeable. So the pieces of the broken heart can come off, and then there's another face that is whole. I didn't want to get rid of the broken heart. There will be times where I still feel very much broken hearted, but there are also times where my heart is full, and so
That's phenomenal.
that is, yeah. And then I guess also the piece back there, the uncovered, rediscovered, that is very much like my me processing like a breakup, and like rediscovering myself once I let go of this idea that like my goal needed to be being somebody's wife. And so that is a piece that is about, you know, coming from under the veil of, you know, perceived beauty and delicacy and desire, and just being happy with being you. And that piece, it's kind of funny because like her ponytail there's actually like 5 different woods in her ponytail. And I spent a lot of time on it, but you can't see it at all. Because I knew I was going to put this veil on there when I was doing it, but it kind of felt like it was a testament to the idea that it's a process, right? And there's still, even though so much of her is uncovered, there's still yet more to be uncovered, and that's okay. That like you don't have to let go all of it at one time, that it can be a process, and you can take your time with that process.
Any more questions? For the good of the order? Once, twice. Can we give our host and artist a round of applause? Again, please stick around. We have the QR code that has the information about the show that you can scan. We have refreshments in the back. Please feel free to ask me or Candice or Dr. Doomes any questions you may like. All right? And we also have refreshments in the back. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.